Dear friends, good morning on Wednesday the 6th of May. In Jeremiah 29, which we're looking at this week to help us through our time of exile and lockdown, we've seen Jeremiah encouraging the 6th century BC exiles in Babylon to settle down in the place of their exile. They're to raise families, they're to serve the pagan nation that they are in, and they are to contribute to its commercial and social life so that both they and the city prosper. We Christians are called to make a similar positive contribution, as we're able to the place of our exile, and especially during this global pandemic. And one of the ways to do that is to have a clear perspective on God's timing and purposes. Jeremiah's letter says this in verses 10 to 11 of chapter 29. This is what the Lord says: "When 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will come to you and fulfill my good promise to bring you back to this place. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." The false prophets prophesied that the exile would only last a couple of years, but this wouldn't have been nearly long enough for Israel to learn the lessons that the Lord had to teach them. Jeremiah says that the exile is going to last a lifetime, 70 years. But he also brings a wonderful promise from the Lord that he has a glorious future for them, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. This verse has often been a great comfort to Christians who are going through hard times and feel that the future is hopeless. And it's a great comfort to us in our enforced COVID-19 exile from so much of our normal way of life and when so many people are suffering. God is in control of this epidemic. Whatever the secular media tell us, the spread of the virus is not random. And as much as we are so grateful to the scientists and academics and politicians who are working so hard to understand what's going on and to give us a timetable for the future, they don't have all the answers, and they never will. Only God knows how his creation functions, what his purposes are, and how and when we're going to come out of this. God used Israel's 70-year exile to teach them and to discipline them, to bring them back to him and to wholehearted devotion to him. Maybe God is using the pandemic to do this for us and to the millions of people across the world who do not usually turn to him. According to a newspaper article in The Guardian last week, a quarter of adults in the UK have watched or have listened to a religious service since the coronavirus lockdown began. And many more of those are in the 18 to 34 age group than the over 55s. And 1 in 20 adults has started praying during the crisis. Let's give thanks for this and continue to pray for our nation to turn back to the Lord. And let's trust God to give us a hope and a future. People have been asking me what I think the church will look like beyond the pandemic, and I have to say I have no idea. But I do know that God has a great future for his people, both in this life and for eternity, and he will continue to work in all things for our good and to prosper us. He knows the plans that he has for us. Trust him.